Hello everybody, and welcome to this live. Everybody were calling, texting in the past few hours since the Trump proclamation was signed. So I wanted to do a quick live video to go over the details, who is going to be impacted, who is not going to be impacted, and just a general quick live to give you an update what this order is about, when it's going to take effect, and we'll do more videos later on to break it down into different categories. But in this particular live, we wanted to cover the most urgent topics that people are asking us every single day, and especially in the past few hours since this was released. So we'll cover which non-immigrant visas are impacted. Is there going to be changes to green cards in the future? And is this going to impact people that are inside the US at the moment? So those of you joining, welcome. And let me know where you're from. Post your questions. I'm going to try to get to some of your questions. I know it's a lot of things. So let's dive right in. I'll see you in a sec. All right, so this proclamation to suspend non-immigrant visas was signed just a few hours ago, and I had a chance to review the order, and I wanted to kind of go over a few things. We're getting a lot of questions, and people are literally concerned about this impact because this one has quite a few confusing elements in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through this a little bit. We're going to go through this order together. So this is on the White House website right now, and you can go and check it out over there. And so the way this proclamation starts is, and I actually have it right here. I had a chance to read it. The way it starts is the president is going through kind of a history of what's happening right now. The economy is bad. He's talking about, millions of people being unemployed, and jobs has to go first to U.S. citizens. That's kind of how it starts. And then if you look at the second paragraph, which is really important, and it starts, in Proclamation 1014 of April 22, suspension, I determined that without intervention of the United States faces potentially economic recovery and persistency, and he suspended it for a period of 60 days. So this proclamation starts initially with saying that the original proclamation from April 22nd is being extended, right? So that's number one. So for those of you that are watching right now and asking this first question, the original executive order from April is now being extended until the end of the year. We'll get to it in a second. So that's right here. If you read it right from the start, we can see that he references the original proclamation, and he noted that proclamation remains, which means that under this new order, it will carry through until the end of December of 2020. So that's one thing. So if you want to know about the other restrictions, we've done quite a few videos on this. There's articles. I'm not going to go into what happened in the other proclamation, but if you remember it in a gist, it was referring to people that are outside of the United States, and specifically for immigrant visas, certain immigrant visas. It didn't talk at all about non-immigrant visas. It did mention that he's going to go within 30 days and expand it to non-immigrant visas, and that's exactly what he did in this particular order. So that's kind of how it started. And then we're going into who is actually, when is this order is going to be impacted? When is this order going to take effect? It's going to take effect tonight at midnight, and it's going to take effect tonight at midnight, and it's going to remain in effect until the end of the year. And essentially it says that every 60 days they can look into it, but essentially this order is going to stay into effect until the end of the year. So now he's going into, we're going to go into the actual order and who is impacted. So and once again, every 60 days they can look into it, but now let's look into who is actually impacted. And so here we're looking at section 4, section 2A, and this order is referring to H-1Bs, H-2Bs, and any family members that are accompanying them falling to join such aliens, which also would include H-4 visas, which is really important because originally we were wondering whether he's gonna, what kind of classes of non-immigrant visas were going to be included. We were thinking that there's going to be more classes of non-immigrant visas, but according to this order, we're specifically talking about H-1Bs, H-2Bs, which are seasonal temporary work visas, and their family members, in this case, they're H-4s. Then we're looking at section 2B. We're focusing now on the J1 visa, on the J visa. And the visa is talking about, and just so you know, the J visa has different section, different categories, right? So specifically in this case, we're focusing on interns who come on J1. So a lot of interns come to work for American companies for a year, 6 months, up to 18 months. Those are going to be impacted. Trainees, teachers, camp counselors, au pairs. Initially we thought au pairs are going to be excluded, but they are included in the order based on this. Summer work and travel, the ones that come for during the summer for 90 days. And family members. So it didn't impact J1 scholars and physicians, which obviously are necessary for, during this economy. The next category, 2C, we are focusing on L visas. So L visas are visas that are intra-company transferee visas, so people that are working for multinational companies overseas, and then their companies transfer them back to the US. Those L1A, L1Bs are going to be impacted. And what is really important to note that if you're looking at the beginning, of this, order, he's talking about the suspension of entry into the United States, suspension of entry. So it's really important to understand that this executive order is talking about people that are outside of the US trying to come in. Okay? As far as we read here, it is not impacting people that are inside the US. Okay? And we'll talk about that as we go through the different sections. So, but it's really important to understand that this particular order is talking about people that are currently outside of the US trying to get in. Right? So, L visas, H-1Bs, H-2Bs, H-4s, which are basically family members. And it's interesting because L visas are not really taking jobs for US citizens. This is essentially employees of foreign companies that are moving labor to the US to help them expand their operations here. These are specialized skill visas, which makes it no sense for me why they would limit them. So anyway, once again, those of you, I know a lot of you guys are joining us right now. We have almost 400 people here. Those of you who are joining right now, if you're here for the first time, make sure you, I'm going to get back to the order right now. If you're here for the first time, make sure you subscribe to our channel. If you have any specific questions, you can text this number here. And 619-483-4549. and we'll try to answer those questions, set up a consultation. I know you have a lot of questions, so this is a special number for you guys who are watching, 619-483-4549, and you can set up a consultation. My name is Jacob Sapochnick, and I'm an immigration attorney here in San Diego, California. And I am, practicing immigration in all 50 states. And I'm here to answer your questions. And we're going to go through this order step by step. And I'll post this number again later on. So if you need to get a hold of us, this is the number to call us. So let's get back to the order. So we talked about L, we talked about J's. And again, so these people that I just mentioned, these visas, the H, the L's, the J's, Section 3 of the order specifically talks about how they're going to be impacted. So it's not all H-1Bs, it's not all H-2Bs, it's not all L visas. These are for those that are outside the United States on the effective date of this order, right? So if you look at here, we are looking at Section 3, number 1. Section 3, number 1, outside of the United States on the effective date of this proclamation. Do not have a non-immigrant visa that is valid on the effective date of this order. And do not have an official travel document other than a visa, such as transportation letter, appropriate boarding foil, or advance parole that is valid on the effective date of this order. Right? So what does it mean? So first of all, those are people that are outside of the US, either applying for the H-1B visa and have not received their visas yet, right? So they don't have a visa stamp. As far as we understand, if you have your visa stamp in your passport, you should be okay to travel back, okay? So in this case, if you don't have your non-immigrant visa in your passport, you're not going to be able to come. If you have a visa, but it's not effective on the date of this order, then you're not able to come as well. Okay, so it's not applicable to all H-1Bs. It's not applicable to all L visas. It's applicable to people that are currently outside of the US and they don't have their non-immigrant visa in the passport or any other way, effective travel document to allow them to enter back to the United States on the effective date of this order, right? So again, I know we have a lot of questions here from people that are asking if they're, went overseas for work or visit, they already have their visa and their passport. You should not be impacted by this because you already have your visa, and they specifically say that. Now let's talk about who is exempt. Who is exempt from this order, right? So let's go back to who is exempt from this order. So again, just like in the previous executive order, we have people that are lawful permanent residents of the United States, green card holders, are not subject to this order. Anybody who is a spouse of a United States citizen, just like in the previous order, they are not subject to this proclamation. Any people that are coming here for the national interest of the United States or for essential work, so probably anybody in the medical field who is deemed essential, they're also exempt from this order. And again, national interest as defined by the Secretary of State, it can be many things, and it's very similar language as we got in this previous order as well. So let's look at a few other interesting things that we have in this order. Now, the Secretary of State, they're going to have a lot of discretion, and that's really important to understand that. So even though people that are currently outside of the US and they don't have their visas, they specifically mentioned in this order that the Secretary of State is going to have discretion when they issue those visas. So for example, you may be somebody who got their H-1B visa approved and you want to be able to come back to the US, maybe there's a particular project of importance that you need to be involved in, you should still be able to try to apply for a visa. The consular officer do have discretion to be able to handle your case and be able to give you a visa. Again, they kind of left the door open to be able to help people that actually should be able to come, but at the same time, the discretion can work both ways, right? So that's really important to understand that. And so the order is going to be enforced with a lot of discretion, and again, it remains to be seen how and how and when they're going to be able to apply this discretion. Now, it's really important to see a few other sections here in this proclamation. This is going to end based on this particular order on December 31st, 2020. And then after that, we'll see they're going to be able to review it in 60-day increments. But for the moment, this particular order, as well as the original order from April, are extended through December 31st, 2020. And then we have a few other interesting provisions here that I wanted to go over with you here. And I wanted to talk to you about them. Specifically, when it comes to future implementation of people that are currently inside the U.S., as well as green cards. Let me find that section. Section 5, additional measures. So, Section 5, additional measures, reflects to two major points that I wanted to discuss with you. So, the first measure is talking about reviewing green cards under EB2 and EB3, also H-1B holders that are currently in the U.S., and the idea is to create regulations maybe in about, in the next 30 days or so, that will determine if EB2 category of green cards or EB3 category of green cards that are currently in the United States, as well as H-1B non immigrant visa, do not disadvantage United States workers in violation of Section 212A5A. So the idea is that the administration is opening the door for more measures, possibly. It's maybe a hint for more measures on EB2, EB3 green cards, potentially for people that are currently inside the United States, as well as H-1B visas as a whole, as a program. So maybe they're going to create some more measures for the H-1B visa, maybe raise the fees. I mean, who knows what. But they did mention that here in Section 5B, that they're going to be looking into this. They're also going to be looking into so anybody who is applying for any benefit, such as a green card or a visa, they're going to have to go through biographical and biometric information, including photographs, signatures, and fingerprints. So expanding the scope of security and data collection on immigrants, both in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. So we're going to see probably some of those more measures that are coming in. Again, they just kind of hinted that in this executive order, but we're going to see more of that coming up in probably maybe future executive orders or maybe amendments to this one. And Section 3 of this particular order is talking about steps to so basically take over the ability for certain people to get work authorization, people that have final orders of removal, people who are inadmissible or deportable, or have been arrested, charged with or convicted of a criminal offense in the United States, from obtaining eligibility to work in the United States. So they're probably talking about people that are going through, again, they didn't mention asylum specifically. We're worried that asylum is going to be excluded somehow in this order. But this particular section specifically talks about people that are going through the court system right now. So some of them, whether they're married to a U.S. citizen, they're going for maybe adjustment in court or any other proceeding. And if they have any of these things that he mentioned, maybe they're in removal proceedings, but they have, they not necessarily have criminal record, but they are in removal proceedings. Some people can apply for maybe a work authorization at some point. Some people that, it's just very broad. Inadmissible, what does it mean? Deportable. We're going to see less and less people being able to apply for work authorization as they go through the court system. And who knows who may be impacted by that. I mean, it's kind of very general here, but I think that quite a few people may be impacted by this particular. So that section probably will do some more videos to specifically explain what this means. But the fact that they are going to, they're going to be restricting or looking into EB2, EB3, and the overall impact of the H-1B visa on the workforce, of the United States workforce, is quite concerning. Maybe there's going to be another order coming out in the next few months, specifically restricting the H-1B visa, specifically either limiting the ability to transfer between jobs, or any other restrictions that could be part of this. So we'll see. That remains to be seen. But I think the majority of these restrictions, we kind of covered them. We have a blog post that I summarized. We summarized it recently, just a few hours ago. A blog post, you can read it. Just go to our Visa Lawyer blog. We summarize this whole executive order. So again, it remains to be seen. The order is pretty clear. They're focusing right now, just to summarize, on people that are currently outside of the United States, and they are not in a possession of a visa to enter the United States, and they are currently beneficiaries of H visas, L visas, J visas, excluding scholars and physicians, and they are about to enter the United States, but they don't have the ability to enter the United States because they are not able to issue a visa. They're waiting for the consulates to reopen, and so they're kind of stuck. It's important to understand consulates are going to be allowed to use discretion. So even people that are somehow excluded, they're still going to be able to apply because of discretion, and we're going to be able to update you more as we get more information. And also, this order extends the original order from April 22nd until the end of the year. So the impact of this on DV lottery applicants who are overseas right now is devastating. And I'll do a separate video on that, because DV lottery holders who are currently overseas are not able to apply for their visas because their ban is now extended. So those people, we probably should do a separate video to discuss their options to be able either to come to the United States or do something else, but it's pretty bad. Also, remember that people that are currently inside the United States and hold L visas or J visas or H2B visas, they are not prohibited from filing for extensions or transfer of employers as long as they're inside the US. And I will update more about the impact of how it's going to work if they have to leave the US, if the visas expire, if they need a stamping. All these things are going to be subject to a lot of discussion, because it's going to create especially with H2B visas, because H2B visas are subject to up to 10 months inside the US, then they have to leave the US, and then they're not going to be able to come back. H2B visas are seasonal visas. These employers rely on these workers. How are they going to be able to come back and work for these US employers? These are specific seasonal jobs that no US workers are actually able to do or willing to do. It's going to crush the construction industry. It's going to crush the hospitality industry. It's devastating what's going to happen for these employees who are stuck abroad and are not able to come back to the United States. So this is kind of the gist of this order. Once again, if you're here for the first time, make sure you subscribe to our channel. I'm going to be doing more small specific videos to update you how this order is going to impact these different categories. And what happens if I have to leave the US? What if there's an emergency? What if my visa expires and then I can't come back because I won't be able to get an extension? So many questions, so many confusions. So that's kind of the gist of it. But remember, what is really alarming are the last three things that I mentioned. Is the fact that they're going to review further EB2, EB3 green card categories, how they're impacting our economy. They're going to specifically review the H-1B visa category as a whole. And so expect more orders to come and more updates to come. So let me guys, thank you for joining me here. I really appreciate you all. Once again, if you have questions, you are able to text 619-483-4549. You're welcome to text this number with questions and set up consultations. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be impacted by this order. So if you have any specific questions, I want to be able to help you. We set up a specific task force at the office to answer those questions. And we have a private Facebook group to be able to discuss all these concerns in a private, safe space. The link to the private Facebook group is at the description of this video. Make sure you join me there so we can continue the discussion. So let's talk about a few of your questions. I mean, there's so many questions. Keep posting them in the comments and I'll get back to those questions and I answer them. We have a question from Ali. What about B1, B2 visas? No, B1, B2 visas are not restricted. Hardik, F1 to H-1B transfers in the United States, they're not impacted. Transfers inside the United States are not impacted. We're talking about only visas, people that are outside of the US and they don't have visas. Let me see, let's take another question. Are K1 and K3 visas affected by the current? No, K1 visas are not affected. They were not affected by the first order and they're not affected by this order. They are non-immigrant visas, but they're not, remember, this order is not impacting all non-immigrant visas. It's impacting very few H-1B, H-2B, J visas, L visas. That's it for now, right? That's all. It's not all. It's not a complete ban. So are CR1 visas being waived? No, they're not being waived. Questions? OPT, no, OPT is not impacted, not by this order. According to this order, OPT is not impacted. Let's see who else. Minsu is asking, will this order affect the processing or issues of H-1B visas for people in the US that will be making transition from OPT to H-1B during 2021? No, it's not going to impact any transfers inside the US. This is an order that is specifically impacting people that are currently outside of the United States. Like I mentioned, these people are outside of the United States. Let me repeat this again. You have to be outside the United States on the effective days of this order, which is today. If you're outside of the US, you don't have a non-immigrant visa that is valid today, right? If you're outside of the US and you have a valid non-immigrant visa, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. And you don't have an official travel document other than a visa. So some people, they can travel with different documents, right? They have a special travel permit, a parole, an advance parole, right? If you don't have any of these documents, you can't come in, right? You are impacted by this order as of tonight. Let's see, take a few more questions, guys. There's a lot of questions and I'll try to answer them in the comments. And by the way, we try to answer as many comments as we can. We can't answer all of them, but we do our best to answer as many as we can. Does it impact H-1B 2021 visa processing outside of the US? That remains to be seen, right? That remains to be seen for the moment. If you don't have an H-1B visa stamp, you are not eligible to come in. I want to see more of these likes, guys, and I really appreciate all of you guys coming down to see this live. We have almost 500 people here. You should be proud of yourselves, and I'm excited to be here to share this information. We have a video coming out tonight about the July 2020 visa bulletin. Make sure you watch that video as well. We've got some good predictions in there. Stamp OPT extension. The stamp OPT, the stamp and the OPT in general is not mentioned in this order, which is good news. OPTs are not impacted yet. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but so far it hasn't been impacted. EB3s, Rafael, EB3s are not impacted. But like I mentioned, there's a specific section there that says, if you look at the proclamation, the specific section, and I mentioned that section before, and that section is right here, that says that he's going to review EB3s and EB2s in the future. Right here, the Secretary of Labor shall, in consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security, as practicable, consider regulations and seeking benefit pursuant to EB2, EB3, or an H-1B non immigrant visa does not disadvantage United States workers. So they're going to be doing some sort of, they're going to be checking to see if the admission of H-1B and EB3s and EB2s is going to impact the U.S. labor force. So maybe it's like a hint for a future executive order. But for the moment, under this one, only non-immigrant visas are impacted. Let me take a few more questions, guys, and the rest you can post them in the comments. Thank you for joining us. Let me see. And we'll do more updates about green card interviews. I have videos coming up for when the embassies are going to be reopening, green card interviews, what's happening in the United States, and what's happening also in different districts. So stay tuned for those videos. Let me take another question here. Does it affect H-1B 20 processing? No, it's not. And let's see. F1 visas are not impacted. No, not impacted. Let me see. Let me get a question here. L1 extensions. So remember, L1 visas are filed inside the US. So you can still file for the L visa extensions. You can still file for L1 visas. But if you're overseas, you're not going to be able to come here if you don't have the visa in your passport yet. Now, it's going to impact a lot of companies that have border crossing, business with the US. It doesn't make sense to me why he would limit L visas. It doesn't make sense to me why he would limit H2B visas. These are critical visas for our construction companies, for hospitality. They're working in grocery stores. They're working in. It just doesn't make sense. But again, this whole proclamation started by saying they're defending our workforce, and it just doesn't make sense. Let me see. Take another question. Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy. Thanks for following me. My wife is currently in Belize. I'm a U.S. citizen. Our case is currently the MVC. All fees paid. Are we affected? No. So remember, the first executive order and this executive order are not affecting U.S. citizens or the spouses of U.S. citizens. And again, I mentioned before, and I mentioned again, who is exempt, and I'm going to say it again, who is exempt from this order? Any green card holder who has a green card is exempt. Any person who is married to a U.S. citizen or a child of a U.S. citizen, exempt. Anybody who's coming to the United States on a temporary labor or essential labor in the food supply chain, exempt. Anybody who is entering here in the national interest as determined by the Secretary of State is exempt. Okay, so there's quite a lot of exemptions. And anybody who is inside the United States is also exempt. All right, let's take another question. Does it impact, see here. Guys, you have so many questions. You're amazing. I'm over 21, son of a U.S. citizen, and my visa will expire in July. Will this impact me? No, you're a son of a U.S. citizen. Now, remember, one of the exemptions in this order is also kids who are going to be aging out. So if you're about to turn 21 and you're somehow going to miss out on your visa because your parents are, your parents cannot come, those kids are going to be also exempt under this proclamation, children who are aged out as well. So they have quite a few exceptions actually. But what is most concerning is the part where I mentioned that they're going to be looking for, it's first of all discretionary. They're going to be putting a lot of more scrutiny on people that are coming to the United States. They're going to take in their photos, fingerprints, and signatures. They're going to be recording all that data. Okay, they're going to be starting to do that. They're going to start rolling that out very soon. Also, people that are going through, their deportable, removal proceedings, certain criminal offenses in their backgrounds, they are not going to be able to apply for work authorization while they're waiting here. Quite a few people, and again, we have to this is just very vague in this order. We're going to have to see exactly what classes of people are going to be impacted by that. But most of these people are people that are very, very low income, and they need their work permit to be able to work while they're waiting for their court cases. Specifically didn't mention asylum. They didn't mention asylum, people who are going through asylum. But I wonder if it could be extended to that, because some people who are going through removal, they're applying for asylum. That's one of the relief forms. And so based on this order, quite a few of these people are not going to be able to apply for work authorization while they're waiting for their cases to be adjudicated. So that's pretty concerning. And, so we will obviously do some more updates as we have more information on that. All right, guys. So I'm going to end this stream right now. I wanted to thank all of you who are here watching. Please continue to post your comments, your questions. Make sure you, if you want to set up a consultation, we'll have a link at the description of this video for you guys to set up consultations with me and members of my team. I know a lot of you have very specific questions about your cases, which are not possible to answer in public, so we can do one-on-one consultations. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and let's hope for better days. This is not the best order, but it's not the worst. And remember, it specifically applies for people that are overseas right now. All right? Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video. We have more videos coming.